And once again, I am glad to welcome dear subscribers and guests of the channel. As you might have guessed from the title of the video, we will not talk about OpenWRT. OpenWRT is a specially designed, free ethical operating system for your router. First, it's probably worth explaining why this is important. The first thing to explain to beginners is that your router is essentially a low-power computer. In addition, this computer is almost constantly connected, firstly, to the internet, and secondly, it has access to all devices inside our local network. And besides, it is through him that all traffic from the user passes. Now just imagine if our router turns out to be a hostile device. In theory, it can connect 24/7 to external structures, intruders viaduct the internet. It can carry out attacks on users' devices. It can attack unencrypted traffic transmitted from our devices. It can mark our encrypted traffic, for example, to de-anonymize users using anonymous networks. And the most important thing is that we can't find out whether our router does it or not, because its entire operating system is closed source. And in fact, buying a router, you buy a pig in a poke. And besides, router manufacturers, due to their software, deliberately, insidiously narrow the functionality of our devices, and maliciously leave vulnerabilities in their systems, as we will see today. OpenWRT is a way to free your router from the corporate oppression of villainous capitalists, and a way to control your device yourself, to know what it does, to manage its processes, and to expand its functionality to everything else. Then it's worth noting right away that OpenWRT is not the only free operating system for Wi-Fi routers. For example, you can easily find information on the web, for example, about DD&RT, LibreCZ, or many other similar free operating systems. We are talking about OpenWRT simply because the list of supported hardware for this operating system is one of the largest. It's worth noting right away that not every router is suitable, especially for this video, and in order to demonstrate to you all, I purchased an Asus router of the WRT AC51 model. I think in any city you can easily buy a similar model. And therefore, firstly, you should go to the official website of OpenWRT and find your gadget, the lists of supported ones. If it is not there, then it makes sense for you to think about purchasing a new device. There you will also find a link to download an operating system image specifically for your device, which consists of two parts: the initial image and the update image. Also on the website, you will find instructions for the firmware of your router. However, as practice has shown, this instruction is not always correct, and in particular, I had to look for instructions for my router on various forums. It is also worth warning that with incorrect flashing, or with an inappropriate choice of the operating system image, you have a certain risk of making a brick out of your device, and therefore you should be ready for this and take all risks. So, how I flashed the router. I must say right away that the text instructions will be in my Telegram, but in fact, everything is really very simple. In the beginning, we will prepare our computer, namely, we will download two operating system images. The one called the kernel, which translates like the kernel, is the main image of the operating system. It is to him that we flash our router at the beginning. We will need the second binary after. We will also need to install a TF-TP server. On Debini, this is done by the apt install TF-TP server team. Then we move on to our router. I must say right away that on different devices and even on devices of the same model, but different revisions, the procedure may differ. I'll just show you how everything worked for me. When the router is turned off, we press the reboot button and do not let go. With the reboot button pressed, turn on the router. The power bulb should be blinking hysterically. Hold this position for 10 seconds. Only then can the reset button be released. After we take the Ethernet cable, connect the router to our computer. After that, we make the typhoid TP command on the computer and the address of our router. In my case, it is 192.168.1.1. Then, we alternately give the command binary, then raw x mount 1, then timeout 60, then trace. Then put in the name of our main firmware, the one that is the core. If everything worked out, the terminal will notify us of the successful file transfer, and the router itself will frantically start flashing lights. Then do not touch anything for about 3 minutes. In my case, the router rebooted itself and stably started shining with one power bulb. After that, all that remains to be done is to connect to it through the browser. Then, we go to the firmware update point and then feed our second binary to our router. We are waiting for another reboot, after which we are already waiting for an updated OpenWRT operating system. What can we do next? In fact, OpenWRT is a small Linux operating system distribution, on which, as on the Linux operating system, you are also free to install whatever you want. Of course, given the limitations on the power of the device and considering that the flash memory of your router is not rubber. But for example, you can install an WRT or torrent server here in order to distribute certain files to the network. Create a vVen server in order to route the traffic of remote clients. Create a vVen client in order to drive the traffic of our network to remote servers. Moreover, according to what pleasing protocols, I turn on WiFi, about all the chips of which I have already told. You can install a Tor proxy and redirect all the traffic of your devices to the Tor network. You can use your router as a repeater and use it to connect to other access points, for example. You can turn it into a platform for wardriving and perform penetration testing in the same way as you do it from computers or laptops. It is on this principle that various Wi-Fi Apple systems are arranged, which are sold in a wide range on AliExpress, to use the power of the router for hosting websites or even Telegram bots. Remotely wake up your computers with certain data packets. In general, whatever your heart desires. This is freedom. In fact, by flashing the router to OpenWRT, you release the power of your router, significantly expanding its functionality. It is also worth noting separately about improving the security of your Wi-Fi network by integrating the new WiFi 3 security protocol, which is capable of countering most of the methods of attacks on wireless networks. But it goes without saying that the update to OpenWRT comes out much more often than updating the firmware of conventional routers. And due to the openness of the code, the audit is carried out by the entire community, and anyone can bring their own updates and improvements. You can install and configure all the necessary programs either through the console by connecting via the user or using the web interface. Our router looks something like this. It works as a repeater by connecting another Wi-Fi network. Also, the vVen client WireGuard is installed on it, and all traffic from my network is transmitted to my remote server. There's a lot of Telegram bot to get to, and for convenience, the interface is translated into Russian, but the latter is already optional. Of course, ethical firmware on the router is far from saving you from all diseases, but it will save you from many problems related to the security of your network and significantly increase the functionality of your devices. All the links from the video, I distribute my Telegram mailing lists, so join us. And if someone has the opportunity to support the channel, then all the details will be in the description. Give freedom to your router. Well, that's all I have for today. And thank you for watching to the end.